Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. Video number 2 in beginner training for hypertrophy, needs analysis and split design. Needs analysis to me in this case is something like a 4-part process. The first is to ask what grand goals that your client has. Maybe it's fat loss. Maybe it's muscle gain. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Whatever it is, it has to be 2 things. 1, logical, like can't say you want it all and all to the max. If you're going to do a combination, it has to restrict the power of one or the other. And secondly, you have to know kind of which one you prioritize more than the other and what's coming up next. Because sometimes when your clients say, okay, I want to lose a bunch of fat and I want to gain a ton of muscle, say, okay, the best way we can do this for you is for a few months, we're just going to train you for simultaneous muscle gain and fat loss because you're a beginner. After a few months, if you really want to lean into the fat loss stuff, we have to put your muscle gain a bit on the back burner. You'll still gain muscle, but more slowly, and we're really going to lean into some fat loss. Do you want to be leaner first or bigger first? This really depends on the client. It depends on 2 things about the client. One is just straight up their desires. They could be like, I want to get fucking big. Or they want to be like, I want to get shredded. I don't really care about big. And it also depends on their physical condition. You know, if you have someone who's coming to train with you and they're just like really skinny and they're like, yeah, like, what do you think? You look them up and down, you're like, oh, muscle gain, man. Like, we're fat loss to where? You're already at 10% body fat. You're going to be in contest shape here in 4 weeks if we train you for it, but it's going to be like the Willem Dafoe starvation contest or something. It's not a look you want. So definitely muscle gain. We want something to get lean. So that's a conversation you'll have to have with them to really define their goals and define which goal is up next. What are we doing for the next XYZ for the next 3 to 6 months? Very good idea to pick that. Number 2, you want to ask them, have a conversation with them about what muscles they want to train. By what muscles they want to train, you're really asking them what muscles do you want to improve the appearance of by either making them bigger or making them more revealed. Because sometimes females, they don't want bigger shoulders. They want more defined shoulders. They don't understand the physiology or the anatomy of the fact that that's really one and the same thing in most cases. You don't have to really tell them that, but what you have to say is, okay, how important are shoulders to you? How important are your arms to you? How important are your legs? What about your core? What about your glutes? Blah, 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 blah. And in addition to that, you don't want to let people get too carried away with thinking they know what they want and forgetting the rest of it. So you know what is going on probably better than they do. And you probably have, if they tell you, hey, look, I want to make my arms more muscular and I just don't care about my legs at all. Or a female says very commonly, I want my legs to be muscular but lean, but I just don't want upper body at all. My upper body's big enough. You instantly think of what that would look like if you really executed what they're telling you. No upper body training at all for that female, plenty of leg training, fat loss diet. In your head, because you know things, because you're educated and have tons of experience, the simulation in your mind's eye that you render looks ridiculous. It is a woman that looks essentially anorexic in the upper body, like sick. People think she's on her way to the hospital or come back from the hospital, and then has like decently muscular legs. And you're like, there's ribs and I can see a shoulder bone poking out. It's not a look they want. But in their mind's eye, they interpolated all the fitness celebrities they know, and they think they're going to have an upper body that looks kind of like that, except a little less muscular. They don't understand that the current muscle they have in their body is insufficient to make them look shapely and sexy. They just don't have enough muscle for that. They think they do, but they don't know that because they've never seen themselves lean, and they don't have an ability to simulate that in their head. So they're going to guess wrong. So a lot of times what you want to do, especially for beginners, is have a brief conversation with them saying, hey, listen, I think it's a really good idea to train every muscle of the body. It doesn't mean everything's going to get bigger. It just means it's going to get some tone, some shape, some structure to it. It's going to make everything healthy and everything look awesome. And it's not going to be like some gigantic freak monster. It's going to be something that looks sleek and just great. And they're going to be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I want that. And when they do their shoulder raises or whatever, they're not going to be like, oh my God, am I going to turn into Arnold? You'd be like, no. You're like 18,000 light years away from Arnold. It's not, but for being a male, for using steroids, for lifting for 40 years straight, and for having unbelievable genetics, you're like all those things shy of ever turning into Arnold remotely. So don't worry about it. So it's a good idea for beginners to be inculcated by you into the idea that they should be training their whole body, but it's totally cool if some of those muscles are hit with just a few compound exercise sets per week. Like maybe if they really don't want big arms, they do their 3 sets of rows and they do their 3 sets of close grip bench press per session, every other day. And that's all the upper body work they're going to do for the next several months. Totally cool. Because for them, that's going to build a ton of muscle anyway, because they're totally new to it. There's no reason to do isolation curls and isolation pushdowns. They said they didn't want big arms. They didn't really want much of an upper body at all. But some of the basics should be there. Which is to say, if your client says, look, I only want bigger legs or I only want muscular legs, it's your job to try to get them to do a little bit of upper body training too and explain that. You don't want to like throw it in there and be like, well, just shut up and do it because I know what I'm saying. You have to weave it in and say, hey, listen, what do you want to look like at the end of this process? Kind of like sleek and toned everywhere. And it's like more muscular legs than upper body. They're like, yes. Okay. We have to train some upper body for that. Otherwise you will literally look sickly and unhealthy. And in some ways be sickly and unhealthy because a low muscle mass is bad for your health. And they're going to go, well, yeah, I don't want that. Like you want to look like you're dying? No. Great. We're going to make you look fit, small, slim, sleek, but fit, which means you're going to have to train all of your muscles, which is easy. It's going to take almost no time. We're definitely going to focus on your legs though, like you said. They're going to be like, okay, fine. It's like you go to the doctor's office and they're like, look, here's his antibiotics. You're going to get better, but you should rest and drink plenty of fluids. You're not going to be like, yeah, whatever. Give me the pill. I'm going out to the club. I'm going to do a dry fast at the club and just dance all night and I'll be totally healed. Your doctor's going to be like, the antibiotics are not a cure-all and they help you get better, but your immune system still needs to show up to the party. And by party, I mean you sit at home and take a day off of work and just eat and drink fluids and relax. And most people, when the doctor says that, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, fine. And they're going to go do it because they want to get better. You didn't show up to the doctor's office knowing that was going to be the case. You showed up to the doctor's office thinking that you just like, give me a fucking pill so I can get over this stuff. And look, in the 2030s or whatever, maybe that's going to be a reality and that's going to be dope. But for now, like there's going to be some extra stuff involved. Just the same way, if you're like, look, I only want this muscle to get bigger, you don't want to look ridiculous. And your trainer says you're going to look ridiculous and bad. You mostly just don't want that. But you just didn't know that was going to be the case. So it's up to your trainer. It's up to you to tell the client that that's going to be going on. Next, a lot of people can tell you, listen, I want to get this, that bigger, this, that bigger. And it's like 8 muscles. You want to sort of talk to them to get a priority ranking going. So say, hey, listen, we can get you bigger full body. And as a matter of fact, in the first couple of months of training with beginners, you're like, hey, great, we'll make it all bigger. But after a few months, you have that conversation again to build their next set of plans for them. You may be like, okay, so like, are there muscles that you like especially want to get bigger like sooner than later or get bigger in the grand scheme than others? Or is it like just really just all around? Almost no one wants to get bigger all around. They say, okay, all around, huh? So you want to just like, let's spend like 15 minutes every few days training your calves. They're like, well, I don't mean calves. Like, okay, forearms then? They're like, no. Neck? No. Traps? No. Okay, so what is it? They're like, okay, chest and back. Like I want to look cock diesel in a fucking suit, arms, shoulders, and like just some quad sweep. All right, great. That we can do. What's more important to you? Big shoulders and arms or big chest and back? In the next few months, they go chest and back. That's all I needed, because then you can sort out what is training when, what the priority structure is, and get them their best possible look. Remember, they don't know a lot of times that prioritization is even a thing. They just say like, I want these things. And you're like, okay, but since we have limited resources and we can do some things really, really well and some things pretty well and other things okay, where does your body sort into that? And it's a totally fine thing if they're like, look, I just don't know. I just want to get in better shape. Hey, listen, then carte blanche. And then you just kind of rotate everything and train them evenly. And eventually, as they get more muscular, as they get leaner, they're going to start to see their body and they're going to be like, this I like. This I want more of. This is cool. I could get a little more of this. This, meh. And then you just don't train traps much anymore after that. No big deal. Next, huge importance. And the last thing you sort of want to ask them in this context. You have to know how many days they can make it to the gym. This is kind of a needs analysis / abilities analysis. What are you bringing to the table? You want to know how many days they can make it to the gym and roughly how long they can commit to a session. Because if they say, oh yeah, no, I can train 5 days a week, and you go, okay, great. And you start thinking of a plan to write them. And you're like, okay, how much do you train each day? And they're like, 15 minutes. Yeah, 15. Good. Get in, get a little burn, get out. And you're like, oh, right. So the goals that you told me earlier, we're not going to be able to do that in 15 minutes, 5 days a week. And they're like, fuck. Here's the thing. There's 2 ways that can go. One is they're like, well, look, that's all I have. And then you have to deal with what you have. 2 is they just didn't know. I mean, they just had no idea. You show up to the doctor with a foot infection and you're like, it sucks. I don't know. It hurts. What the hell's going on? And you're like, I got a vacation to Mexico in 4 days. What can you do? It could be like, yeah, no problem. Take these antibiotics, rub this cream, in 4 days, it'll be totally gone. That's a possibility. Another possibility is you go, look, this is going to take 3 weeks to resolve in a good case scenario. And you're not in danger, but like you got to get on treating this now. Or like if you came in like a week later, we would be having a different conversation about how much of your foot you wanted us to cut off. And they're like, holy shit. And like, but Mexico? Nope, not going to happen. You're going to go to Mexico. You're going to get some of that fucking water on there. You're going to go into the beach, get in the sand, and then the shit's going to re-inflame and you're going to fucking die in Mexico. Maybe not die, but maybe die. So all of a sudden it's a different conversation, but they just didn't know. They didn't know how bad the infection was. It was the doctor's job. Some people will come to you with various goals, and the goal structure, what they wish to happen in the amount of time they have allotted, 3 months or so, is completely incongruent with how much time they've allotted to it. And sometimes it's just because they have no idea. They don't know how long people train. I mean, they look at Kim Kardashian looks amazing. And I've seen her workout videos and she says she trains 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week. And she looks like that. Well, she looks like that with a team of robot surgeons that rebuild her body every hour. How the fuck that works? And not very much to do with her working out. She has amazing genetics to begin with. The whole thing is illusory. You don't know how completely unmoored from reality the client is. And there's also no expectation that they should be moored into reality, because who the fuck taught them that? They didn't go to school like you did for this. They're not, in this whole RP university business. They don't know what the hell's going on. How much do you know about computer programming? I know about 0, and I work daily with other computer programmers. So with no expectation, you have to be the person that grounds their reality into saying, okay, you want to come in for 15 minutes a day, 4 days a week, and we can definitely get a lot done and we can achieve your goals. Or you say, we're pushing it with that. Can you do more? And they say, well, okay, why? And if you still want to do this, what you told me, lose this much weight and get this much of a change in your physique in 3 months, it's gonna take an hour each day, 4 days a week. And they go an hour. Let me check my phone. Yep, can do. Or they say, I can't do that. And you say, okay, let's talk about your goals again. So somewhere in that conversation, you're gonna arrive at okay, this I can do, this is gonna work, let's get it done. Huge point incoming. Mega brain point, nuclear bomb point. What you need from them, definitely for how long they can train per session, that's obvious because you need to book your sessions out. And if they say, well, I can train an hour, but they leave after 15 minutes, they're like, I'm sitting around for 45 minutes doing nothing. I could have booked another client. But in a really, really, really big way, in a way that is very difficult to overstate. You want their commitment for how many days a week, and maybe even on which days of the week they can come train with you. Their commitment should be a definitely can. Maybe can is totally worthless. And there's a big problem there. The client wants often pretty exotic, tough to reach goals, and they know it's going to take a big commitment. So they're inclined to give you a big commitment verbally. And that setup also plays with, because they're in that early phase of inspiration, they feel jazzed. They're like, this is the new me. Old me didn't work out. New me is a fiend for the shit. I'm like every 80s workout movie in one human being. That's me. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll drink raw eggs. I'll do 2-a-day practices. I don't care. And it's like, well, you actually don't know if you can do that stuff. And smart money is you have no fucking clue what you're talking about, and you're absolutely not going to be able to do that stuff. What I need from you, Mr. Client, is how many days a week can you definitely make it in almost all circumstances? That is a categorically lower number by logic than the amount of number of times that you think you can make it in the average week, that you hope to make it in the average week. And most clients will give you hopes. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. So you say, hey, okay, you want to lose this much weight? You want to get, these muscles stronger and bigger in this way in 3 months? How many times a week can you come in? And they're going to be like, what's it going to take? And you might even render an accurate assessment. Say, an hour a day, 5 days a week. And they go, okay. Yeah, then that's it. Pause. Cool. Come back. It's okay. Can you make that number of sessions? They might say, yeah, of course. You go, are you sure? And then you describe to them and you say, look, consistency is undefeated. Consistency is the core of everything. And if you miss a bunch of sessions, it throws off the logic of our training plan and throws off your progressions, such that if you commit to 5 sessions a week and you usually make 3, you're going to have worse results than if you commit to 3 and make 3. It's rather obvious when you explain it to someone. And if these people work in the professions, which they almost always do, you can give them a really easy analogy. You say, look, if you have an administrative assistant that comes and helps organize your tasks for you and answers some emails and does some spreadsheet work for you, and he says that he's going to be able to come in 5 days a week, but he actually shows up 3 days a week. Is he getting a good employee evaluation from you? You're like, no, hell no. He's getting fired after a week. Like, What if he said he could come in only 3 days a week? Every single week he came in exactly 3 days. What kind of evaluation would be getting? Oh, yeah, stellar employee. I love him. My man. Same here in training. They're like, right. And you can even tell them, look, you can tell me 6 days a week. It does not impress me. It doesn't impress me. It has no effect on your goals. Just tell me how many days a week you can make it in. And I can even tell you, look, ideally it would be 4. But if you can make it 3, we'll make it work. If you can only make it 2, or take a look at your goals, we're going to adjust them down a little bit. You'll still get amazing results. But if it's really 2, it's really 2. What I need to know from you, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, is what can you for sure make? And obviously for sure is an exaggeration because, your kid falls off the bike, you go to the hospital, you can't make it that day. Fine. But like some people, many people, you can tell through my face, it's a painful experience, will overcommit and they'll just cancel. And some of these people are so breaded up, they're so rich that they don't care. You say I have a 24-hour cancellation policy. If you cancel 23 hours before our session, it's full charge. And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, wow, you do have a lot of money. And they're like, yeah. And then they cancel 3 days a week, even though they booked for 5. They show up 2 days a week. And a lot of those folks will still think they're on track for their goals. You have to head this off at the pass early. Try to get them to understand cordially. Your conversation with them here will be less lengthy than the conversation I'm giving you right now to explain this concept. So it doesn't have to be a forever talk. Are you sure? They're like, yes. But sure. They're like, yes, Jesus Christ, can I just pay you money? You have to get them to understand committed training that they can almost always make is what you want out of them. And then if they can make more than that, they're like, look, the 3 days a week thing has been working great for 4 weeks. I can do 4. I'm telling you, I can do 4. All right, fine. 4 days a week it is. After week 4, you start 4 days a week. Let them prove to you they can make it for fewer days of the week. And then that's dope. Then you can always do more. But if you have them commit to 5, they actually make it 3, they feel disappointed oftentimes. They feel like they're always behind the 8 ball. And they're not wrong. And everyone's having a bad time. You have to re-architect the program all the time because you've done some kind of split with them and they didn't show up. And all right, no leg day this week. I guess we do 2 leg days next week. I don't even know what to do anymore. There's many times where I've been involved in a variety of forums and I'm asked the question of like, okay, if I miss a day, what do I do? Or if I miss half a week, what's my best bet? And of course, there's clever sports science ways to say, okay, we'll do this, do that, adjust here, move this day here, delete half the exercises here, move them here. But the real deeper answer for many of them is like, there's no good answer here, man. That you just start next week, like nothing ever happened. And a lot of people are like, well, isn't there like adjustment that I can like what, motherfucker, like what? Go back in time and get the sessions done? They're gone. They're done. You're not going to get those results. People want everything to be infinitely malleable to them, that they can fuck up as much as this is in the worst case scenario, deep down, the little shit client in all of us wants maximum adjustment, minimum input, and the ability to somehow wiggle into still getting all their results. And you got to be upfront with them to say, look, that's just not going to happen. Now, once you understand what they're in for, you have their priorities, you have their dedicated amount of time and number of days they can train, you begin to make the split, which is a very simple 4-step process. First, you take all the muscles they want to train. You take all the weekly sessions that they're going to train in, and then you just assign muscles to sessions. And for beginners, this is actually a profoundly easy process. You have one rule implied from the stimulus recovery adaptation lecture and training principle, that every muscle must be trained something like 2 to 4 times a week. Thus, typically, if they are a beginner, they're going to recover very fast. Their minimum effective volume is going to be very low. So a couple sets of everything is going to nuke them and give them amazing growth. And there's just not a lot of muscle there, not a lot of strength. So every few days they're ready to go again. If they're with you 2 days a week, it's whole body, both days. 3 days, same thing. 4 days, whole body every single day, which usually means like 1 exercise per muscle group, or even 1 exercise per 2 muscle groups. Like you have them do a close grip bench, and that checks the box for chest and triceps and front delts, as a matter of fact. There you go, 3 for 1. At 4 days a week, you can get some people to go into an upper-lower split, potentially. So where they have upper body 1 day, lower the next, rest a day, upper body 1 day, lower the next, totally cool. For 5 days a week, you can do whole body. For 6 days a week, you can do whole body. But for 5 and 6, you can also do more advanced splits. The 5-day you see here is lower push-pull, lower upper. That's a split that's good. There are many others that are just fine. And of course, for legs, or for 6 days a week, there's push legs, pull, push legs, pull. Any kind of iteration on that theme works really well. For beginners, generally speaking, you're going to want them to train just 2, 3, or 4 times a week with you, because beginners training 5 days or 6 days a week is usually just so much training for them, so much commitment to a new kind of lifestyle, the training lifestyle, that they're really kind of recipeed to burn out. Because you're doing 2, 3, or 4 times a week training with most beginners, the standard operating procedure for beginners is often going to be whole body. Every time you come in, you do whole body training with them, which means you hit every muscle group in the body, generally, prioritizing some of the ones that are most important. And that's point number 4. Most of the muscles that are prioritized, they say they really want big arms. You're going to do exercises that involve the arms first in the routine. And as they get more tired later in the program in any given session, you're going to do more of like back and chest and legs and stuff like that. Most of the week, that's the case. But if you have someone training, let's say 3 or 4 days a week, 2 of the days you're going to go on priority first. The other day, or 3 days in the 4-week plan, 4-day plan, they're going to do, arms first, arms first, arms first. And then 1 day, just for recovery and to flip the script, you're going to have them do their deprioritized muscles first and their prioritized muscles last or later in the program to give them a little bit of a break. That generally seems to be like a good structure. All right. That's that. See you guys next time.